Alright guys, you had a few minutes to work on this. Let's go over how to do it. We're going to start with Brian. What did you do to start us off here, Brian? Squaring. There you go. So they're already square rooted, so we're going to get rid of that with square. Awesome. And when we do, what happens to the square roots, guys? They disappear. They simplify out, right? We call that mathematics right there. Okay. So now we're going to solve for p. How do we do that? Well, we got to get p's on one side and the numbers on the other. Jade, what did you do? So then these ones simplify out. So here we're going to have negative 10 plus 2, which is negative 8. And that's going to equal to p minus 2p, which is negative p. How do you get rid of that negative? Good job. Now we'll just change the sign of both of these so we get p is 8. Do you guys agree that p is 8? Is that what you guys got? Awesome. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we need to check our work. When we do that, we're just going to take 8 and we're going to substitute it in for where we saw p. And we're going to make sure that gives us a true statement. Because if it's not a true statement, what do we say it's called? Extraneous. Good job. Okay, so we're going to take square root of 2 times 8 minus 10. And set that equal to square root of 8 minus 2. And we're just going to simplify and see if we get the same thing. Here we're going to get 16 minus 10. What is 16 minus 10? We'll have square root of 6. And here 8 minus 2 is 6. Is this a true statement? Yes, that means 8 is a true, it's a real solution. It's not an extraneous solution. Alright, cool. Thanks for your help on that one, Brian. Let's go to this next one here. We're going to follow those same 4 steps. This time we're going to get some help from Caleb. Caleb, is our radical already isolated?
Yes.
Cool, so then what do we do?
You square those sides.
Square and square. So when I do, I'm going to get a squared is equal to 30 minus a. And boom, the radical is gone. Now when we got rid of the radical and we just had a linear variable and some numbers, we just got the variable on one side, the numbers on the other. But our strategy is going to be a little bit different if we have a squared. I think I had you write this down last time. What do you do if you have a squared? So Jade's saying over there, we're going to set it equal to 0. Come on. And then what are we going to do after that? Factor. Alright, so let's do that. So here, how would I get that 30 minus 8 over to the other side?
Subtract
So I'm going to subtract the 30, so we got to do the opposite so they cancel out. Add a. So that's going to give me a squared plus a minus 30 equals 0. Okay, so that was step 1 of now solving. We set it equal to 0, and then now we're going to factor. Remember with factoring, we're trying to put it into these parentheses here. And there's going to be an a at the start and a at the end. But how do you know what numbers to put in there? Remember what our thought process is? I need 2 numbers that what? Awesome. So I usually make this little X here thing and I say, they multiply to that number, right? Because we're distributing here. The numbers multiply to give you the negative 30. But then they'll add to give you the coefficient here, which is 1. So just in general, what numbers multiply to 30?
5,
5 and 6, 2 and 15, 10 and 3, 30 and 1, right? Now which of those numbers are only one away from each other? 5 and 6. So I know the numbers are going to be 5 and 6. One of them has to be negative since they multiply to a negative. How do you know which one is which?
The lower one is negative.
How come, Mindy?
Because the variable is positive. They have to add 2 positive.
There you go. So negative 5 plus 6 needs to add to a positive. So that's why the negative put 5 is negative. So cool. We're going to put that right here. That's negative 5. And this is positive 6. Now, our solutions for A are going to be whatever makes these become 0. Because it's set equal to 0. So I'm saying, okay, what value of A, if I subtract 5 from it, will give me 0?
Right.
The opposite, which is 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. So our first solution for A is 5. And then here, what number, if I add 6 to it, gives me 0?
Negative 6.
Negative 6, good job. So I have my two answers, 5 and negative 6. Okay? How do we check if those work and if they don't?
You put them both in there.
We're going to plug it in.
Same time.
At the same time, let's not do the same thing. Let's do one at a time. Okay, but let's check and again hope for a true statement. Let's start with 5. So I'm going to get that 5 is equal to the square root of 30 minus 5. So this is checking 5. Square root of 30 minus 5, that's going to be the square root of 25. Which, what's the square root of 25?
5. Yes,
Hey, did that work?
it did.
5 is equal to 5, so this one is good to go.
Incredible.
Awesome.
So does that mean 6 is not?
It is possible to get one and the other, that they both could be. It's possible that both could not be, and it's possible you could have one or the other. It kind of depends. So let's try this one out. Now I'm going to go and do negative 6. Is negative 6 equal to the square root of 30 minus a negative 6? What happens when we minus a negative?
Yes, it is.
We get a positive, so 30 plus 6 is 36. And the square root of 36 is what?
6.
Is negative 6 equal to 6?
No, it's not.
Uh-oh. So what kind of solution do we have there for negative 6? It's an extraneous solution. So what we have here, guys, there are two solutions. One is real, one's extraneous, 2 total. So on your level 3 questions, you're going to be solving it like this. On your level 2, it's solved for you, and then you just have to plug them in and check that they
What
work
is
or not.
level 4?
We're going to get to level 4. Now, what a good segue.
Yeah.
You guys, you got your notes out, right?
I'm just ready to make the transition already.
Good job. What we're going to do for the level 4 questions here is we're going to be working with rational exponents, also known as like fraction exponents, okay?
No.
And they look a little scary, but once I show you a couple tricks, they're not too bad.
Horrible. Is it on the last page?
So yeah, go to the last page of your notes. We're just going to do, I think it's like 4 problems here, and then you're going to take your quiz. Alright, so right here, there we go. Do you see number 22?
No, it's on the other page. It's in number 23.
Okay, go to number 22.
Oh.
So, how is 22 different than all the problems that we've been doing?
How's fraction?
We have a fraction exponent. And then when people see that, it really throws them off. They're like, oh man, what am I going to do there?
Like division and stuff?
But now, a 1/2 power is the same thing as a square root. That's one thing that you learn. Oh, I need to scroll over on here. One thing that you learned in secondary 2, maybe you forgot it, was that you can rewrite the square root as a 1/2 power. So when I saw square root of x, this is the same thing as x to the 1/2. Now, what that tells us on number 23, as soon as I see that 1/2 power, how can I rewrite this?
The square root of x plus 3.
Exactly. So that's what you're going to do here. We're going to write this as 8 is equal to the square root of x plus 3. So if you see a 1/2 power, don't be scared, it's just square root, and we're going to go through our same steps as what we've been doing here, okay? So let's go to Melissa on this one. So Melissa, I got rid of our notes. Is our square root isolated? How do we get rid of our square root? Square it. 8 squared is 64. And then here we're going to have the square root and the square cancel. So that's just going to leave us with x plus 3. All right, keep going, Melissa. How do I solve it? Good question, right? So I get 61 is equal to x. That is my solution. Now I need to check my solution. So what do we do now?
Plug it in
Plug it in.
to the other one.
Oh yeah, let's do the one that we already rewrote as a square root. What do you guys think? That's a better idea. So I'm going to say that 8 is equal to the square root of 61 plus 3. Guys, what is 61 plus 3? And what is the square root of 64? That's a true statement, so it tells us 61 is a real solution. So I'm going to come down to this chart right here. How many real solutions did we have? How many extraneous solutions did we have? And then for total, you just add those up. 1 plus 0 is 1. And there we go. That's how we handle the 1/2 power. It's just a square root, right? Let's do another example here. So 24. I'm going to rewrite, very first step here, I see that 1/2 power. Let's rewrite that as a square root. So I'm going to do 3 is equal to the square root 102 minus 2x minus 7. All right, let's go through our steps. So we're going to start off with Antonio. What is step 1? That's step 2. Isolate. So here's a radical, is it alone? How would I get rid of that 7? There we go. Thanks, Antonio. We're going to add 7. Add 7, so that's going to give me 10 is equal to the square root of 102 minus 2x. Now let's go to that next step you're saying, which is since it's isolated, we can now get rid of it. We can eliminate it by squaring it. But if we square one side, we square the other. That gives me 100 is equal to 102 minus 2x. Alright, so then Oscar, can you help me with the algebra there? I just have an x, so we want to solve for x. What would be my steps here? So maybe first with that 102, since it's adding 102, what would be the opposite? We're gonna move it away from the 2x, so let's subtract the 102. That way we're getting it away. We want to get the x alone. So we're getting rid of all of its unwelcome guests. 100 minus 102 is negative 2. And since the x is being multiplied by negative 2, what would be the opposite of multiplying by negative 2? Divided by negative 2. What's negative 2 divided by negative 2? Just 1. Is that what you said? Oh, I heard a noise. It's really hard to tell who's talking when you're all wearing masks. Okay, so we get 1. Awesome. What do we do now? Check it, let's plug it in. So I'm going to take that 1, and I'm going to plug it in everywhere that I see an x. And I'm going to use the one that we rewrote. So is 3 equal to the square root of 102 minus 2 times 1?
Not including the one we rewrote all the way. With the 10 and everything.
Oh, I guess that's true. Maybe I made a mistake, though, so I like to go back to the beginning. So that's a good way to do it. So now, I'm going to rewrite that so you can read that better. So this is 102 minus 2 times 1. Okay. So what is 102 minus 2? I'm struggling here. Okay, 3 is equal to the square root of 100 minus 7. What is the square root of 100?
10.
And what's 10 minus 7?
3.
So we get 3 is equal to 3. That's a true statement. What does that tell us about 1? Real solution. Awesome. So I have 1 real solution. How many extraneous solutions do we have? 1 plus 0 is 1. Okay. So if you see a 1/2 power, what does it really mean?
The square root.
Awesome. We'll talk about 1/3 and 1/4 next. Before we do, time for a joke. What is Harry Potter's preferred way of getting down a hill? Walking. JK, rolling. Do I only get one person who got it?
We're not smart enough to know the authors of books.
Come on now. That was a good
We
joke.
already established this at the beginning of class.
Uh-oh, I shut down my computer. Don't do it. No.
Cancel.
Oh, good, cancel.
Yahoo! Luckily you had apps open.
Yes. That would have been bad, pushing buttons here. Okay. Your job is to look up who wrote Harry Potter, and then you can go back and look at it.
And you're like, haha, JK.
So you get it? Okay, I got 2 people who got it. Yes. Alright, let's go to 26. So guys, if a 1/2 power meant square root, what does a 1/3 power mean?
Cube root.
Yeah. So I'm going to write that over to the side, and I'm going to use my fancy pen here. Let's see how it works. So if I see x to the 1/3, that really means the cube root of x. Whoa, do you see that cool writing there?
What? Oh, whoa, fancy. You're like on Khan Academy now.
Now, look at 28. What does that mean x to the 1/4 power is? It would be the 4th root of x, right? There's someone in my last class are like the quad root. I'm like, good guess.
Quadratic.
I don't know if it has a fancy name, but for 2 it'll be the square root.
There's
For
not
1/3 it'll
4
be a cube root. For 1/4 it'll be the 4th root.
There's only 3 dimensions.
1/5 it'll be the 5th root. Yeah, it gets a little mind-boggling after that. So let's actually go through 26, okay? And it's not too bad. What we're going to do is we're going to start like we did on the other ones. Let's rewrite this as a radical. So now, just a quick clue on your quiz, the first few questions are going to be, is this a radical or is it irrational? And what it means by that is, can you write this with a radical symbol? If you have a fraction in the exponent, that means you can rewrite it as a radical. So this 1/3 means cube root. So even though when you're looking at it at the beginning, it doesn't have a radical, could you rewrite it as a radical? That means yes, so you'd call it a radical. It's not a radical, then it's rational. Okay, so I have the cube root of x squared plus 6x is equal to -2. So I just rewrote that. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, is the radical isolated? Is anything add, subtracting, or multiplying, dividing?
It's isolated.
It's isolated. So then I'm going to go to step 2, which is eliminate it. When I had a square root, I squared it to get rid of it. What am I going to have to do with the cube root to get rid of it? Cube it, which means you times it by itself 3 times. So I'm going to cube it here. But if I cube one side, I have to cube the other side. So now, when I cube a cube root, the radical goes away. I'm just left with x squared plus 6x. Then over here I have negative 2 cubed, and I'm going to put that in parentheses. Negative 2 cubed means I'm doing negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. And when I do that, negative 2 times negative 2 is what? 4. What's 4 times negative 2? So negative 2 cubed is negative 8. Awesome. Once again, we have a quadratic. When we're solving and there's a quadratic or an x squared, what did I tell you to do? Set it equal to 0 and factor. Good job. How would you set this equal to 0? Awesome. Now set equal to 0. I need a factor, which is get it in parentheses. Now, this is actually the easiest quadratic to factor, in my opinion. When I'm like teaching factoring, I start with this guy. So I want you to think you should be able to do this. What numbers multiply to 8 and add to 6? And they go in the parentheses. You have 10 seconds. Don't shout it out, spoiler. What was it in your head?
I don't need 6 seconds. I got.
I'm not going to go to any movies with you guys. You're just going to say, oh, Black Widow dies. And I'll be like, what? Spoiler.
That is a spoiler. Why would you say that?
If you didn't know that already, you weren't going to find out. It's too late. Okay.
Well, it's that Iron Man. That's great.
All right. Now, those are my answers. I need to figure out what makes those become 0. So what's the opposite of 2?
Negative 2.
What's the opposite of 4?
Negative 4.
There's your answers. Now, I need to plug those in to see if they work. Okay? So I'm going to come up here and check. And I'm going to use, let's first do negative 2. I'm just going to come up and put it in here and here. So I'm going to get the cube root of, and I've got negative 2 squared. And then we're going to have 6 times negative 2. That's going to equal negative 2. Okay, there's a lot of things going on here with negative, so be careful. Don't try to check these in your head. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. And 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. What is 4 minus 12? Now, we want to know what the cube root of negative 8 is. So what number multiplies by itself 3 times to give you negative 8? And we actually did it right here, guys. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. So the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. Now, this brings up a good point because some people might be thinking, I thought we couldn't do square roots of negatives.
Yeah.
You're right, but this isn't a square root.
It's
It's
a
a cube root. And a
Oh,
cube root, since we're doing
yeah.
it an odd number of times,
It can be negative.
it can be negative. Because look, it's like what we saw earlier right here. A negative times a negative times a negative is still a negative. So I say, what's a cube root of a negative? It will be a negative. But the square root of a negative doesn't exist in a real number system, only in an imaginary number system. Okay, so good. We checked negative 2, and it worked.
Woohoo.
Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to check negative 4 and see if it works. And I'm going to kind of come over into this space over here. So 28, I'll just do it a little bit different spot. But we're going to say, all right, what is the cube root of negative 4 squared plus 6 times a negative 4? Is that negative 2? Well, we'll just simplify this until we see if it works or not. Negative 4 squared, negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. And then we're going to subtract 24. 16 minus 24 is negative 8.
Oh.
Hey, we saw this on the last one, the cube, oh, this is cube root. I stopped writing the 3, that's a bad thing. The cube root of negative 8 is negative 2, so we get the same thing again.
Woohoo.
What does that tell us about our solutions?
Well,